And now in English. First of all, sorry because I've been asked to delay the launch or the publishing of this video. Other years it was more or less at the end of the press release or press conference here at IBC, but this time I prefer to be careful with the contents that we launch directly, because this one is much more an explanation in a bit deeper detail of the FX9. So this is the new camcorder. I don't have the LCD because I cannot find it on the box, but basically this is it. Obviously, if you have ever worked with an FS7 or FS7 Mark II, it is going to be more or less the same. The operation is very, very, very similar, but there are many changes on it. First of all, you may have detected that finally we have this strap here. It seems to be very, very silly detail, but in the past I needed to lock the camera this way, and I was my forearm was typically gotten tied. Now I can hold the camera this way, and I don't need even to grab the camera. This means that I am holding it by the biceps, which uses to be much stronger than the forearm. This is on the right side. Also, the connector to the camera is via USB. You can use the LAN or LAN-C, typical from the FS7, FS7 Mark II, FS5, or RM30BP, any controller which is via the mini jack, the 2.5 millimeters mini jack. But in this case, we have improved the responsiveness of the camera via the USB connector. On the right side, there are many changes. First of them, as you can see, it is a slightly more square camera body that allows me to hold the camera directly with the chassis, because in the past, if you attached here a BPU 90 battery, it was very likely to hold the camera via the battery, which is not very good for the connectors. Also, the way to open the gate for the cards is slightly different. In the past it was a button, so if you held the camera this way, most of the times it was open in this position. So now it's more secure. Also, you have not only the dual XQD slots, but also an SD slot that will allow us to record proxies, camera configurations, etc. Also, you may have detected that we don't have the filter turret here, but a dedicated layout of buttons. We have a little dial that we can assign to different parameters, and also we have removed the dial for menu scrolling, because in the past it was very likely to happen that you press the button and instead of going into that menu, you go to the immediately upper or lower menu in the menu tree of the camera. So now I honestly prefer to have buttons. In the FS7 Mark I, we have only this row of assignable buttons here, and in version 2 we had another this column, and now and in version 2 we had another row here. We have now separated or spread those buttons from that row across the camera body, and now you have 4 direct access to the volume of each one of the 4 audio channels. Also, it's slightly different the way to access to the layout of the buttons, basically, because it's very typical to work this way. So very nice to have here an assignable button. In my case, I think that it can be easily assigned to the dual ISO function of the camera that I will speak about later. So you can see that the layout is different, basically. So now jumping into the sensor. Sensor is a full frame, 6K with more than 15 stops latitude and dual ISO. And many of you will think, okay, that is Venice, so you are using the same sensor as Venice here. No, absolutely not. We have created or designed a totally brand new sensor for this camera with Exmor-R technology, so much more light to be captured, much more precise, and we are oversampling the signal from 6K to 4K. So it is a 6K, let's say, full frame 6K capturing camera that records onto 4K. Depending on the area that you are scanning, you will get one frame rate or another. So originally you can reach only 16:9 formats like 3840 or Full HD resolutions, which are 16:9, and in the future you will reach 17:9, so DCI that reach up to 4096 horizontal pixels in the recording format, not in the sensor. The sensor can be scanned at 6K in full frame mode or in 4K, as far as I remember, in Super 35. Okay, and there will then a fifth way to scan the camera will appear, which is a 5K resolution, horizontal resolution, which is oversampled and then converted into 4K. For what? Because if you scan the sensor in 6K full frame size, you can reach up to 4K 30p frame rate. But through the 5K scanning area, you can reach up to 4K 50p or 60p. And that scanning area is bigger than a Super 35. So the conversion factor, I understand that it can be something like a 1.25 when you install a full frame lens. You are zooming in, basically. Also, that sensor allows to have a dual ISO, which is, if I am right, 800 and 4000 ISO. So, for instance, if your scene demands to be shot in 2000 ISO, you can go through 800 ISO and then increase the light via the gain. Well, not the light, the electron or the signal via the gain. You add more dBs, or you can go through 4000 ISO and then decrease via the ND filter, for instance. Depending on those paths that you can choose, you can split the latitude of the camera over the mid-gray. Let me explain that. ISO 800, you add gain and you will have something like 7 1/3 and 7 1/3 stops above and below the mid-gray. But if you go to 2000 ISO from 4000 ISO, you will have 5 stops over the mid-gray and 10 stops below. Meaning that, for instance, for low light scenes, you have more information in the low lights. So for low lights or dark environments, it is better to go through ISO 4000, while for outdoor or typically very well lit environment, it is better to use the ISO 800. In front of the sensor, you will have electronic variable ND filter, which is basically the same as we had in FS5, FS7 Mark II. In fact, there is a little quiz for you, which was the first model in which it was introduced, and it was not the FS5, so there is a clue over there. Now, this is the first time that it is incorporated into a full-frame sensor, or before a full-frame sensor. That allows us to work in both ways, or in two environments. For news, it is very nice, because you can adapt the quantity of light hitting the sensor via the ND filter. So it's like wearing a variable sunglasses in front of the sensor. For instance, you are following some person via doing a traveling, and then you go outdoors, from indoors to outdoors. There is a big quantity of light suddenly over the sensor, and there is a typical overexposure. Someone dumb like me would close the iris, but if you close iris, then the depth of field increases. So the outdoors will be much more video looking than inside, in which you have the iris totally open. Somebody that is more intelligent and more expertized than me could use the shutter. But if you shutter faster, it is much more video gaming like aesthetics. So you are basically changing your aesthetics. While if you keep the ND filter in automatic mode, this guy is recommending automatic, yes. For the ND filter, yes. Then the quantity of light hitting the sensor will remain the same indoors or outdoors. So in that case, you can keep the same aesthetics indoors or outdoor. But the second environment in which you can work with the ND filter is for fictional or aesthetic purposes. For instance, imagine that you want to shoot a bird. Not to shoot, well, to shoot, yeah, a bird that is in a branch, and then what you want to do is to keep the same focal length but increase or decrease the depth of field. You can do that by modifying the iris, but if you close or open your iris, there will be less or more light. So if you modulate the light via the ND filter, it will allow you to have that change in the depth of field while keeping the same light, basically. In front of the sensor there is the lever lock type E-mount, which is basically the same that we had in the FS7 Mark II or the Venice, which is a E-mount with a security ring, let's say. Having an E-mount allows us to use almost virtually any lens in the market, because the flange back distance, the distance between the sensor and the top of the mount or the rear side of the lens is very short. So then you can build whatever you want. So you can build any lens over your camera via an adapter. So you can work with, I don't know, EF lenses, FD lenses, PL lenses over this kind of cameras. Also, it's a very wide mount, allowing to many sensors to be hosted there. One of them is the typical APS-C from the NEX series cameras. Another one is the full frame, like in this one, in Venice, in the Alpha series, or Super 35 like in FS5 or FS7. And also is an interface that allows to have some communication between the lens and the camera body. So the camera can control the lens, and the lens can send metadata to the camera, and this will help us to do some stabilization process in the future. That I will talk about that in the future. Content Browser Mobile is the Content Browser or Catalyst Browse. Well, one software will be available for that. Also, internally, we can record in XAVC long op, XAVC intra, or MPEG-2, so it can be perfectly a typical broadcast camera, so it can work in the same workflow as we had. But we are going to have a different rear side camera adapter. Maybe you remember the shape of an FS7 was a bit more rounded, and now it is square, so we cannot use the same XDCA FS7. Now we will use the XDCA FX9, allowing us, firstly, obviously, to use V-mount batteries, but also it will allow us to output raw signal in up to 16-bit depth, which for me is totally crazy. Also, there will be a slot for wireless microphones, a future generation. Also, we will have dual dongle for XD camera platform services, like streaming with QoS over our platform, or uploading files, or many things that you can find in our website to see what they can do. Also, an Ethernet connector and a D-tap output for accessories, typically. So also there is an important function. Maybe you remember that one of the nice features that we have in the Venice camera is how we treat the skin tones. They are absolutely magnificent. We adapted that color science, what we had learned from that age, to FS5 Mark II, and in the picture profile number 1 and in the default profile you can find a different way to treat the signal than to FS5 Mark I in the same picture profile. Now we are adopting that picture profile. It is going to be called S-Cinetone, and it's going to be incorporated as a picture profile in the camera. So you can select that picture profile so that skin tones are much better, with much more quality, much more natural skin tones than a typical, broadcast camera. So basically that is the basics of what I wanted to explain to you. I hope this video is useful for you. Otherwise, sorry for taking your time, but I have to say thank you very much indeed for viewing this and for leaving your comments, your questions, and I will try to find time to reply you all. Thank you very much indeed, and I'm going to return the camera to the stand because otherwise I'm going to be in troubles. So thank you again.